And next up at UFC 328, we've got Roman Kopylov taking on Marco Tulio. And I got to say, this is a very 50-50 fight here, but give me Kopylov. I think he's got a little bit more tools in the arsenal here to give Tulio something to think about. Just go talk about Tulio's last fight. He lost to Christian Leroy Duncan, and the reason he had a lot of trouble with Christian Leroy Duncan was because in that fight, he's only really throwing boxing combinations. He wants to trade in the pocket. He doesn't throw a ton of kicks. Shoot a box fighter that isn't known for the ground game and the wrestling. It's mostly just throwing hands on the feet. He wants to have extended combinations in the pocket. Christian Leroy Duncan can dart around the outside, throwing teeps, throwing kicks. And in the clinch, I think Christian Leroy Duncan is a little bit better with the elbows, surprising spinning attacks as well, which is ended up what got Tulio caught. And I think that unorthodox, more athletic style really made Tulio struggle in that fight. He got caught, he got knocked out. And I think if you go back and look at the Tresean Gore performance as well, even though he looked impressive in that fight, he was getting touched up by Gore on the feet. And Gore's not necessarily known for being this outright, technical striker. So with the fact that he was getting touched up so much by Tresean Gore has me worried here against a guy like Roman Kopylov. Kopylov obviously coming off of back-to-back losses, but let's dive a little bit deeper into those. Gregory Rodriguez is no slouch in this division. He's bigger, he's faster, he's stronger, he's got the threat of the takedown, the high-level Brazilian jiu-jitsu, and the guy walks around at almost 225, 230 pounds. The fact that he can make middleweight is insane. So Kopylov, there's no shame in losing to Gregory Rodriguez. And you go back a little bit further and look at his loss to Paulo Costa. Costa is another guy that can blast kicks. He's on an ascendancy. He's looked good in that fight. And I think in that fight, Kopylov wanted to be more technical, but, Paulo Costa just hit that little bit harder. So everything he was doing, he was having that little bit more intent in the shots. And I think Roman Kopylov is a guy that he needs to be kind of a little bit more technical, a little bit more in terms of the back and forth exchanges, kind of picking and prodding and not necessarily getting swarmed. My one concern here is if Kopylov trades in the pocket with Tulio, Tulio could 100% get the knockout here and get the victory. But I think that Kopylov is the better wrestler. I think in this particular fight, his kicks are going to be a great weapon for Tulio to have to worry about. And I think those two weapons he's going to be able to kind of go back and forth with. And I think that's going to give him some success here. If he trades and kind of exchanges in the pocket with the boxing, it's going to be Marco Tulio all day. I think Roman Kopylov here coming off of back-to-back wins to high-level guys. This is a step down in competition against Marco Tulio. He's not looked good since joining the UFC. Even in the victory he had against Tresean Gore, he was getting touched up. And I think Kopylov, if you look at his fight against Chris Curtis is a guy that doesn't throw a ton of kicks. He's mostly just rolling and shelling up with punches, and he's not necessarily mixing in a ton of grappling. And in that fight, he was able to utilize a lot of his kicks. He was able to light up the body and the legs of Chris Curtis and ultimately, kind of make Chris Curtis shell up. And I think if Kopylov uses a similar tactic here against Tulio, he'll be able to catch Tulio on the feet, who's not as defensively sound as a guy like Chris Curtis. Chris Curtis's boxing is much better. He rolls with punches much better. But I think Tulio is too willing to exchange and too hittable to be landing in the pocket and not worrying about the counters coming back at him from Kopylov. I think Kopylov can light up the legs from the outside, and I think if it comes to the grappling, Kopylov is probably the slightly better wrestler here. Tulio slows down as well. I think Kopylov's fought a little bit longer into fights, so give me Roman Kopylov here as the slight underdog. As long as he doesn't trade in the pocket, he'll be fine. Let's see who Carlos has got in this one.
In this one, I went a little back and forth on it because, Kopylov, obviously, he's a talent. He can be very difficult because of the speed, the ability, the technique on the feet. But I'm going to go with Marco Tulio in this one to get it done because, Kopylov's been on a bit of a skid. The last two fights were pretty tough against people like RoboCop and Paulo Costa. He fought the Paulo Costa of old pretty much. That's how I look at it. Paulo Costa, the old one, fought that fight with Kopylov the way that he would have fought before he got knocked out by Izzy, and now he's looking good. But anyway, I just feel that if you impose yourself on someone like Kopylov and you show that his abilities aren't really that intimidating, so far it's shown that he's not going to push back. He's not going to pick it up another gear. He's going to kind of submit to you. He's going to stay on the feet, and he's going to look a little flashy, throwing like a spinning back kick, a wheel kick, or he's going to throw a spinning back fist or a flying knee or something. He's going to look sharp coming in and out, but he's not going to try to do any damage to you if you're trying to impose yourself on him. And I feel like someone like Tulio is trying to do that from the shoot the box background in the gym. that's it. He's going to be the aggressor, and that's what he wants to do. He wants to come, he wants to impose himself, he wants to come forward, and he wants to hit you with heavy shots everywhere, whether it's to the head, to the body, to the legs. That's what he wants to do. And, Roman Kopylov is very fleet of foot, so that's something Tulio's going to have to get a hold on. If I were him, I'd be ripping to the legs, ripping to the body very early. And Kopylov, one of the reasons why I feel like when you're trying to impose yourself on him with the striking, he kind of backs off of you is because in one of his fights that I saw, actually two of them that I've seen where he was getting like outstruck on the feet, he actually went for takedowns, and that's the thing is like that's not what he wants to do. That's not why the UFC signed him. That's not why he got to this point. It's because on the regionals he's ripping through people, and that's how he got that look. And if you're starting to go right to takedowns, and when I say that is you can always add extra facets to your game and improve yourself, but when you do that and that's not something that you've done, you're uncomfortable doing, you're doing it out of like self-preservation. You're trying to survive in the ring. And if you're going to try to do that, I can see Tulio just imposing himself on him and Kopylov just, whether he goes for a shot or he just backs off and doesn't throw as heavy anymore throughout the fight. He's done that as well against Paulo Costa and RoboCop. So I think Tulio can get the same response from him. Tulio's a big guy for the weight class. He's a heavy hitter. And he can take a shot here and there, too. He did get dropped by, who was that? Christian Leroy Duncan, that's correct. And he was able to, he wasn't able to bounce back from that. But I don't think Kopylov has that kind of a threat level of athleticism and power as Christian Leroy Duncan. So it's a close one, but I'm going to take Marco Tulio to get it done. I think just his aggressive style and nature is going to be enough to impose himself on Kopylov and possibly get the decision.